Paolo Banchero. Paulo was an all-star this season, led the Orlando Magic to what, the number 4 or number 5 seed. They were in the 4-5 game. I remember that. 22.6 points, 6.9 rebounds, 5.4 assists, shot 46, 34, 72.5. Career true shooting percentage 7% below league average. The advanced metrics are not a fan of Paolo Banchero. I will say that I think a big reason why the advanced metrics are not a fan of Paulo is because he is very clearly the number one option on the Orlando Magic. And thus, his efficiency takes like a very real swipe, essentially. While we all love Franz Wagner's ability as a slasher and as a cutter and as like a tremendous like off-ball second, third option, right? He just kind of can't create shots at the level Paulo can as a mismatch player, as a frankly guy that doesn't even need a mismatch to go get like a reasonable mid-range jumper. I think that Paulo often takes the brunt of things for Orlando from like a metrics perspective, because he is the guy that is forced to take the tough shots when this team, who doesn't have a lot of offensive creation out there and a lot of creators generally, when he is out there, he's the guy that has to go get those shots and thus is asked to do those things. Now, I think he's not a good enough shooter as well. That is a very, there are two separate things happening here. I think he needs to improve as a shooter. Also, I think Paulo gets hit unfairly a little bit by the advanced metric stuff. I had him, I think, 6th on my list.
I also did.
Yeah. And like just the way that it kind of worked out, he slid up to 5th because we had some guys higher.
Because of me having Brandon Miller a little higher and Jalen Williams lower and stuff like that. It's just the way it bounces. Yeah.
I think that he's often asked to do a lot of different things, basically, for his team, and that ends up resulting in difficult situations for Paolo Banchero. The thing I will say is that I love him as a passer. I love him as a mismatch nightmare. I think the efficiency is going to continue to improve. He's 21 and a half years old. He's basically Brandon Miller's age, right? Like, he is, to me, there was like a bit of a tier break here, to be honest, like a mini one, not like a significant one, but like a little mini one. I was like, okay, like Paulo is, I think, look, I had J-Dub ahead, so like I would have had like, I had the tier break at 6 personally, but like I felt like Paulo, his ability to create a shot and to get mismatches is so substantial that as he gets older and as he becomes a better shooter throughout the course of his career, because the one thing that guys with a reasonable level of touch do, they become better shooters. He will become more efficient. It's just that he is starting at a lower level of efficiency, to where the question is, what is the efficiency eventually going to look like? Is it going to be that he can be a plus efficiency guy, or is he like a reasonable efficiency player?
Yeah. And I mean, to his credit, he's gotten better. His rookie year, he shot less than 30% from 3. This year, he shot 34. And then in the playoffs, he shot 40% from 3 on almost 6 attempts. Now, that's 7-game sample. Guys can get hot, but he averaged 27, 8.5, and 4. Now, he had a bunch of turnovers. So, like, that's another area where he'll have to get better as well. But this is a little bit of my pre-draft thoughts on Paulo, where I love Paulo coming into that draft. I did think he was going to be, the best player. Obviously, we're about to talk about another guy, but I thought he could be the hub of an offense. I saw that in his game at Duke, or I felt like that's what he could be. And I think you had it there, like mismatch nightmare in that series against the Cavs. He was really good when he would get a mismatch against Mitchell or Garland. He would immediately attack them. And in this game, it was just a parade to the free throw line. He was 10 for 10 in the first half. And so that's another thing where, if he does make shots, eventually his efficiency is going to look good, because he's averaged at least 7 free throw attempts all along the way, his rookie year, this last year, and in those 7 playoff games. So he is a guy that with his body can get to the free throw line. So again, projection, can he continue to increase the passing? Does the jumper get to league average? And then I think a thing for me is I think Paolo can be an impactful defender, even if he isn't yet. I think he has the potential with his size to be like an off ball defensive kind of rotate, rim contest, verticality, those type of things. Not at like a super high level, but at an impactful level if he would kind of buy into that and really believe in it.
Yeah, people bring up the name Julius Randle a lot. Like if you look at the chat right now, the name Julius Randle has come up a decent amount.
Okay.
He is so much more fluid on the ball than Randle is. Like Randle is like a battering ram kind of on his drives. Like he's going to try and put a shoulder into you and he's going to try and get to the basket. Now he's developed the ability to take the 3-pointer, right? Paulo is so smooth in terms of his skill set, in terms of like getting in and out of his crossovers, in terms of getting into like little hang dribble things and being able to create like genuinely out of ball screens, being like an unbelievable passer off of those, off of a live dribble as well. I think he is so much more dynamic than what we've seen from Julius Randle at this point. And that's why he is just a level above Randle for me. He is still not yet 22 years old and is capable of doing the things that he is on the ball. And look, like I liked Paulo coming into the draft. I had Chet ahead of him. I still have Chet ahead of him, as we'll talk about here in a second. But I think that everything that we hoped for from Paulo's skill set as a skillful ball handler has translated. To me, like this conversation is just genuinely blanketly simple. What is the level he's going to get at as a shooter? And as Orlando continues to add more floor spacing, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope this year, for instance, hopefully Wendell Carter continues to get back to a level as a shooter, as a floor spacing 5. Jalen Suggs continues to take strides as a shooter. He made 40% this season, but
Tristan Da
a lot
Silva
of the time,
eventually.
those were, open shots. Tristan Da Silva. Hopefully Franz gets to a point where he is a better shooter than what, he has been for the last year, realistically. Does that open up driving lanes even more for Paulo and allow him to be an even greater driver toward the basket? Again, look, like Jalen Williams ahead of Paulo, like whether or not that ends up right or wrong, I don't know, but I trust Jalen's two-way game just a little bit more than Paulo's. Paulo's ceiling is higher than Jalen Williams's, though. Like if the shooting comes around, his ability to get to the foul line, live at the foul line, be a mismatch shot creator in the mid-range and the mid-post, and run ball screens and play on the block and like pass it and make plays. Paulo's ceiling as an offensive player is one of the top 3 offensive players in the league if it breaks right. But it's a big bet on the shooting getting there for him to hit that level.
And I guess I realize I keep going back to this point. He's also the guy on his team. And so I think that just opens up opportunities and narratives and stuff like that. So I guess from my perspective, I also thought of just this as a projection of how everybody will view these guys. And maybe that's why I keep going back to what are they on their team? And for Paulo, if Orlando continues to rise and be good, he is going to be the guy on that team, which elevates him above, in my opinion, the third guy on another team. And again, we don't have to continue to go round and round about the Jalen Williams Chet thing with OKC specifically. We've hit that home. I'm just saying I factored that in quite a bit of he is the guy for this team, and this team is going to be good. And it seems to be good. Like they see, again, another team that has an identity. And a little bit like with Şengün, Paulo doesn't have to be amazing defensively because, they have Jalen Suggs and KCP and, gosh, why am I blanking on the dude off the bench? Holy cow, this is bad.
What, Cole Anthony?
No, Jonathan Isaac
Okay.
as a defender as well. Like they just have these guys, Anthony Black, whenever he cracks the rotation. Now, with that said, I think Paolo has the physical tools going back to college to be impactful defensively. His engagement is the issue, especially off the ball. And if he can ever fix that, I think he becomes at least neutral, if not a little better.
Yeah, to me, I think he's taken real strides in his year and a half that he or 2 years now that he's been in the NBA. Like I thought he was quite bad um early on in his NBA career, but I think being with USA Basketball last year might
Sure.
have really helped him kind of take that next step in terms of attention to detail maybe. I didn't think he was like horrendous on defense this year.
No, no, no. No, no. I
I thought he
didn't
was
think
like pretty okay.
was he neutral to you?
Ye- Yeah,
Okay.
I think I would say yes, just in terms of like he doesn't get hunted because he's so fucking big.
Sure.
Like he's just an enormous human being. So like people like don't really go at him. Where he falls off a little bit is, in my opinion, off the ball. Like you said, he
Yeah.
will at times kind of lose concentration a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, this is a guy who has an enormous offensive load consistently every single time he's on the court. Also, I was kind of excited based off of what I saw in the playoffs, right? Having these guys who can create difficult shots when they matter at the moments where they matter most is the essential piece of playoff basketball almost. Like you need guys who can consistently create decent opportunity looks from the mid range, or be able to get to the basket and bully their way to the basket, or find mismatch situations from a coaching perspective, right? Like Paulo to me is the ultimate mismatch nightmare among like the young guys in the league right now, outside of maybe Victor, right?
Yeah. Sure.
His ability to create mismatches is ridiculous and that's why he ends up living at the foul line. He is a he is a ridiculous player. Like, no in the comments brings up he averaged 27, 9, and 5 in your first playoffs in his second year and did it against the Cavs defense that is really good.
Yep. It's a good call.
Yeah, to me, like Paulo's ceiling is still somewhat underrated, I think, but it comes with really needing to improve the jumper and being more efficient.